Good afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon, Madam Chief Justice, and good afternoon to the commissioners.
I'm not even going to ask how you are after the hug I saw you exchange with Judge President Mlambo. You should be fine.
I'm very well, Madam Chief Justice. Thank you.
You from Matatiele?
That's correct, Madam Chief Justice, in the village of Ramuhlagwan.
Do you still go back?
I always go home, will always be home, Madam Chief Justice.
That's good to hear. You have listed 4 academic qualifications under your belt: a diploma in human rights, an LLB, an LLM, and an LLD.
That's correct, Madam Chief Justice.
Where did you obtain these qualifications?
The diploma in human rights, CJ, I obtained it from now the Northwest University, Mafikeng. Then it was the University of the North.
Yeah.
Then the LLB, I also obtained it from the same institution. I obtained my master's in international human rights law from the University of Notre Dame in the United States. And my PhD, I obtained it from UNISA.
All right. You have a very interesting CV. Your employment record starts with you being a security officer in
That's
2002.
Correct. That's correct, Madam Chief Justice.
How long were you, did you do this job? No, not for long.
I did the job for about 6 months before I found out about the Northwest University. I was in Rustenburg there.
Then you ended up doing articles
at the Legal Resources Center in Durban.
In Durban.
That's correct.
And you clerked at the Constitutional Court at some stage.
That's correct, Madam Chief Justice, between 2009 and 10.
For Justice Yacob.
That's correct, and we are still in contact.
How did you find that experience?
It was a stimulating experience, Chief Justice, and I think I grew significantly, especially in terms of dealing with legal issues. And I think to a certain extent, that experience happened to carry me through my acting stints, but it was a worthwhile experience.
So you decided to carve your career path in the academic world?
Madam Chief Justice, it was not by choice. I struggled with a module called bookkeeping. So I realized at the same time I was good in academia. So to me, given some other family responsibilities, I couldn't afford to pursue or rather persevere as a candidate attorney and try to pass the boards. Life had to go on, and I ventured into academia.
So you've built your way from assistant lecturer in January 2004 to professor and director in 2024.
That's correct, Madam Chief Justice, although it took me longer than necessary.
But you took 20 years. But that's not too long. You are a professor of law at the University of Fort Hare.
That's correct, Madam Chief Justice.
And your directorship is in the
UNESCO Oliver Tambo Chair of Human Rights.
Yeah. You are also a non-judge member of the Electoral Court.
That's correct, Madam Chief Justice.
I remember that you were part of a panel in a judgment that occupied our minds not so long ago from
Indeed.
the Electoral Court.
Indeed,
in
Chief
the
Justice.
vexed matter of the Electoral Commission versus Mkhondwe Party.
That's correct, Chief Justice.
I won't go into the merits of that judgment and what finding was made in respect of your majority judgment.
I respect your view, Chief Justice.
All right. So you have acted as a judge in the High Court now.
That's correct, Chief Justice.
For how long and where?
I was particularly based in the Gauteng Division, Pretoria. I started acting in 2022.
True.
I think I did 2 terms. Sorry, it might confuse me in terms of the actual dates, Madam Chief Justice. But to be precise,
Mlambo will take us through that. That's his forte. But
that's
my calculations are that you have totaled up about 43
44 weeks.
44 weeks.
Yes, Chief Justice.
And in which courts did you sit? What cases were you adjudicating?
Chief Justice, I sat in motion court, opposed motions, unopposed. I did civil appeals. I did criminal law appeals. I did special trials.
What are special trials?
Those are the ones, Chief CJ, maybe you are located, it will run for a duration of 5 days or 3 days, depending on the dates that have been assigned to that particular matter.
So did you conduct any trials at all, civil or criminal?
I have conducted civil trials, Chief Justice.
Not criminal?
Not criminal, only criminal appeals, full bench, yes, Madam Chief Justice. And I've written judgments in that regard.
You mentioned somewhere in your application form that you were admitted as an advocate.
That's correct, Madam Chief Justice. Under the old dispensation. But when the new dispensation came into effect, I did not do anything. I left it as is.
You mentioned that you occasionally did criminal work involving bail applications and trials related to excessive speeding.
That's correct, Madam Chief Justice. That was a very brief period post my admission, and it did not last that long. Hence, I used the word occasionally because I would not go every day.
All right. Well, you wouldn't have become a professor if you didn't publish extensively. So we won't deal with your academic publications. I'm more interested in your court judgments. You've had occasion to produce judgments.
That's correct, Chief Justice.
How many would you say you have produced?
I've produced 46 judgments, Chief Justice.
Have any of those been reported?
Yes, Chief Justice, I have 2 reported judgments, and one of those judgments was confirmed by the Supreme Court of Appeal. One of the judgments was overturned.
Well, I'm going to leave it to the representatives of the General Council of the Bar to raise the GCB's concerns with the quality of your judgments. They have a lot to say about that. Are you convinced that you're ready for permanent appointment as a judge? You're ready to become a judge?
That is the reason I'm here, Madam Chief Justice. I am ready.
And what would you say to anyone who says you are not ready and might perhaps benefit for more acting experience, as some of the professional bodies have said?
Madam Chief Justice, let me first acknowledge the constructive criticism that comes from the General Counsel of the Bar. The answer, Chief Justice, would be that out of all these 3 reports, or rather comments, there is a general trend. That trend is that I produce well-reasoned judgments. I produce judgments timeously. I'm able to conduct the court efficiently and that I am independent. The only concerns, Madam Chief Justice, are related. In particular, this comment comes from the General Counsel of the Bar. It's in relation to my orders. And they rely at least, I think, on 2 judgments. Madam Justice, when JP Mlambo identified me as a raw diamond from the village of Matatiele, he threw me in the High Court in the deep end. The basis for that process was that I undergo through a rigorous process so that I can be familiar with the art of writing judgment. Try to convert my academic writing into well-reasoned and sound judgments, which I have mastered. There is always an area for improvement. Having gone through that process of drilling, here is the shining diamond in front of you, Madam Chief Justice. The judgments that I have presented before this commission, it shows significant improvement on how I craft my orders. To that effect, there is none of the concern raised with the judgments that I have submitted, especially insofar as it relates to orders. Madam Justice, I believe that this commission, respectfully so, should adopt a holistic approach. I bring in a triangular experience. That is my academic background, my acting stints, and my experience as a non-judge member of the Electoral Court. I believe that the entire experience has sufficiently prepared me to undertake and discharge duties as a judge of the High Court. Those are my submissions, Madam Chief Justice.
You were a legal editor with the public protector for a spell.
Yes, Madam Chief Justice, there initially when we were appointed, our duty was sort of editorial. But as time commenced, we were actually involved in the drafting of the reports. And in this regard, one of the reports that comes into my mind is the report titled Secure in Comfort. I produced the draft of that report, then you would send them to the Office of the Public Protector. I was then reporting under Professor Tulima Donsela. Then they would finalize the reports. So even in that capacity, I produce some of the reports. Madam Chief Justice, I hasten to mention that the reports that I worked on whilst at the Public Protector, none of them were taken on review successfully.
Right. All right. I'll hand you over to JP Mlambo.
Thank you, CJ.
Good afternoon, Prof.
Good afternoon, JP Mlambo.
Are you good?
I'm very good, JP. Thank you, and yourself?
I'm fine. I just want to confirm that I identified your CV. You had not applied to Gauteng. Some years ago, before I invited you, I think you had applied for a post in the Eastern Cape, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me.
It was the Land Claims Court.
Yeah, the Land Claims Court. So I saw your CV and I said, no, I must invite this person to come and act in Gauteng. You remember the discussion we had?
I remember them very well.
And that's how our relationship started.
Thank you, JP.
Now, You've acted in the High Court, mostly in Pretoria, but I'm sure you did some work in Joburg, or was it mostly in Pretoria?
Only in Joburg under the Electoral Court, JP, not in
Yeah,
Joburg.
not in the High Court,
No.
but the High Court in Pretoria.
Yes, JP.
Yeah. And the report you have in front of you shows the work areas you've acted in. You've confirmed you haven't done any work in criminal trials, but you've sat in criminal appeals, both full benches and full court appeals. Am I correct?
That's correct, JP.
Then you've written some of them.
Yes, sorry, JP, if I may identify something. I
Yes.
think there was a confusion with the spreadsheet, JP. In
Yes.
2024, I also sat in an agent court. I think it was from 12 until 15 up until 19 January.
Yes. In fact, I was coming to that. The spreadsheet lists something like 4 weeks in one term, which is an impossibility. We can't put a judge to do 4 weeks of agent court in one term. Never.
I get it, JP.
So my office has just confirmed that you actually did 2 weeks of agent court throughout your acting stints. Do you confirm that?
Yes, JP.
The one you mentioned and another one in last year, I think second term last year.
Yes, JP.
Yeah, so that's 2 weeks in agent court.
Thank you, JP.
And you've done 3 weeks of opposed motions, is that correct?
That's correct, JP.
And 2 weeks of special motions.
That's correct, JP.
I mentioned these because these are the heavy work areas where judges accumulate reserve judgments. You confirm that?
I confirm that, JP.
Now, how did you find acting in the agent court in particular?
JP, must admit that it is very challenging.
Yeah.
It's challenging in the sense that you get an agent application on top of an agent application. In other words, you need to be always on your toes. I remember at times I conducted some of the agent court matters during the weekend. But overall, it was a worthwhile experience, JP, and
Yes.
I think I have risen to the occasion.
No, you have, no doubt about it. And in the opposed motion weeks, how did you find that? There you get your files 2 weeks before, you hear them, even though you have other work, but you have the files so that you start preparing. How did you find those allocations?
JP, that was also good, but at times, in fact, my first acting stint there was that I felt that I was thrown into the deep end. I thought that you had mistaken me perhaps with someone who's from practice.
Yes.
But with the preparation and using some of my notes that I obtained from former colleagues, to this instant, I think Judge Stuart Wilson, whom I worked with at Seri,
Yes.
he had prepared me a sort of a starter pack. So I was able to survive, JP, but also got the shock when I realized that I had almost 10 reserved judgments when I left. But with the preparation of counsels, then the work also becomes a little bit busy, but at times demands more research, because when you adjourn, both counsels have to a large extent convinced you, and you have now to come to your own conclusion as to which one is more probable and so on.
Yeah.
But it was a good experience, JP. Thank you.
Yeah. I think what is impressive about you, although you had a bit of practice, most academics struggle in the unopposed motion court, those who've never practiced, because that one requires a lot of knowledge of procedural law. But you've a whopping 13 weeks that you did in that court. And that tells me that you had a good handle of the work.
I am humbled, JP.
Now, in terms of your reserve judgments, you've just mentioned them. I did a quick scan. You record that you did a total of some 46 judgments. That's the list I have.
That's correct, JP.
Right. And some of them took you longer than 3 months. I can point them out to you if you want.
I
but
still remember them.
You
in my
remember
hand,
them,
JP.
yeah. I think only one took you 5 months. The others were 4 months, 4 months, 4 months.
That's correct, JP.
Yes, so you didn't have any that went over 6 months.
Yes, JP. And if I may expand on the ones that were slightly above 3 months, JP.
Yes, yes.
Those were matters that you find that are matters that are joined and they are heard together on the same day.
Yes.
Although the aspect of the facts to a large extent are similar, but the relief sought is separate. In other words, it's two applications at once.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's just one, the one that took you 4 months. That's the Arrojo versus Greche matter.
Those were the matters, JP. It was a review application as well as a recusal application.
Yes.
If I may also mention, JP, the
Yes.
DB matter.
Yes.
That matter, JP, is the matter that involves RAF. Without going much, JP, the challenges faced by the Road Accident Fund need not be elaborated on.
Yeah.
But when that matter was assigned to me, the actuary report was outstanding. And already there were suggestions to request for postponement. But I stood my feet and said that this matter has been allocated for these particular dates, and with or without the actual report, the matter is proceeding. Unfortunately, the actual report was there on the trial day, but we proceeded a JP. At the conclusion of the matter, counsel was given specific time frames on which to submit the report. However, counsel still failed. It was only when I said, I am delivering my judgment with or without the report because I have given you ample opportunity. Hence it took longer.
No, thank you for that. I have my own scoring metrics as to how I score candidates. And I want you to comment. You've said in almost all the work areas, except for criminal trials, but you've done criminal appeals. Taking account of the number of weeks you spent in the urgent court week, in the opposed motions and in special motions in particular, and not having acted in criminal trials per se, out of 7, how would you score yourself? It's a subjective thing. I'm just putting it to you to think about, you know?
Yes, JP.
Yeah.
JP, I would go for 5.5.
5.5, okay. Thank you very much. And in terms of, well, reserved judgment, it's a simple one. If you've delivered all your judgments before 3 months, out of 5, I give you the whole 5. But if there are some that went over the 3 months, but less than the 6 months, then you lose 1 point up to 4. So I think that would be a fair score, do you think?
I will sit at 4, JP.
That's what I'm saying.
That is fair enough, JP.
Yeah. Now, you are one of those applicants who didn't discuss their candidature for coming here with me. And I want it to be understood that I don't play a gatekeeping role. But it helps bite myself and candidates when they say to me, look, I have a nomination, do I accept it? And then we sit and talk. And the first port of call I do with candidates who come to me like that, I say, let's look at your acting allocations, right? And then let's look at your list of judgments. But more at that time, it's just your acting allocations. And I look at them and I say to you, realistically speaking, as head of court, I would not think you are ready to go. And I would point out why. There are a number of people who've gone through that process. But I say, However, should you disagree with me, you're welcome to apply, but I will put these concerns that I have with you during the interview. You understand? So I don't prevent anyone from applying, but I just advise them that I think you are ready, or I think you'll be ready after acting in this area, in this area, in this area. You understand what I do? You haven't had that engagement with me.
Sorry, JP, if I may come in.
Yes.
JP, I would like to refresh your memory. JP, at some time I wasn't acting, and I think we met in one of the official functions. And you said I should come over, and we happened to meet. When we met, JP, on that, I was sitting at 39 weeks. And you said, I'm ready to go, JP. You are comfortable with 39 weeks.
Yes.
Yes, JP.
Yeah. Well, I won't dispute it. I don't remember that
Yes,
conversation.
otherwise I would have not come here without your approval, JP.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I don't blame you. I'm 60-something-year-old, so, you know. Yeah. I mean, under normal circumstances, I don't hold that conversation that way. As I say, we sit, we look at what's before us, and we convince both of us, say, well, are you ready? It's 39 weeks, but where? I can give one example with one judge who's in Joburg now. She'd acted for 3 years in the criminal trial courts, right? And when I took over in 2012, I said, I'm not going to recommend you because you are in a court that does a lot of commercial work. I want you to act in the other civil work areas, especially commercial work areas. She listened, and she's a judge now. She's one of the senior judges. So it helps to have that engagement, right? I don't dispute what you say. It may have happened.
Sorry, JP, I don't mean to exchange words, JP. And if you may recall, JP, my spreadsheet was one of the first probably candidates, which to me helped me to complete, and we emailed it to you in that regard.
Yes, but I do that so that every time you act, it gets updated, isn't it?
That's correct, JP.
Yes. So the fact that Tumi did it and emailed it is of no moment. All it means is this a candidate who wants to become permanent. So we need to track his or her acting periods and in what areas, isn't it?
I appreciate it, JP.
Yes, that's why. So there are two other issues that I want to mention. And I want to assure you, I have no interest in the merits. That is your UJE issue. I have no interest in the merits as to what happened, who's right, who's not right.
Yes, JP.
My issue is when this litigation happened, you had already started acting.
No, JP, I hadn't started acting, JP. If I may refresh JP's memory, JP, at one stage, I think I phoned you, it was in the evening, just briefing you that, JP, I have this challenge going on, and JP, it ended there. Then I said I will keep JP in mind. But at no stage, it was during my acting stints at JP.
What is the date of the period? The order is 2023-03-22. That's the date stamp I have here. And you started acting in 2022.
20. Oh, sorry, JP. You mean the order was made before? I had already started. What happens, JP, with this matter? It comes settled. Then it resurfaces. It has its own timing. Just as it has resurfaced now. I know, JP.
I'm just interested in when it was in court. It has a 2023 case number.
Yes, JP.
You started acting in 2022.
2022.
Yes.
By then, JP, the matter wasn't there. It was resolved amongst the parties.
Right.
Fast forward, JP. I'm about to start at court. It surfaces. It dies down again as we enter the court. It's settled before that. It dies altogether, JP. Come the JP interviews, it resurfaces.
For your information, I'm the one who requested the JSC to circulate these documents to you. It's not by anyone else outside here. So, as I said, I'm not interested in any merits as to who is right, who is wrong.
Yes, JP.
All I'm saying is, here's an order against you. You had already acted, I think, in 2022.
Yes, JP.
Or twice, if not mistaken.
Yes, JP.
And then here's an order, and I don't know anything about it, in the sense that you didn't come to me and say, in this court, this division that I'm acting, an order of this nature has been obtained against me. And I want to understand why you didn't do that.
JP, it must have fallen through the cracks, but I remember very well, JP, I'm not sure whether JP will recall. When this matter started, I did contact JP, that JP, I have this particular matter, but we are in negotiations, JP, for settling. Perhaps from there, JP, I did not come back to you that, JP, we have now settled. And because there is this constant resurfacing of this matter, we have agreed that we are going to make this dispute an out-of-court settlement and take it to court, so that going forward, no one will accuse the other. But JP, this answer forces me to go back a little bit back. When I left the University of Johannesburg, we had fought our fight, and we made an undertaking. I made an undertaking. The first one was that I'm not going to retract the statements, and I'm not going to apologize, because you subjected me to that, whatever behavior and so on, racism and so on. I signed an undertaking, we finished, the matter ended there. I joined Northwest University. After having joined Northwest University, the dean calls me, Phooko, there is this matter between you and JP. Then I report to the dean. Dean, as far
Look, let me stop you there.
Yes,
you
sir.
can say that if you want, but that's not my intention. Like I said when I started,
Yes.
all I say I'm concerned about is you are acting in the Gauteng Division, and there's an order that has certain implications about your behavior, especially your activities on social media, about statements you may be making against other individuals. And here's an order in which you signed an agreement of settlement to say you won't do this. And when I went into the fold down case lines, I found that you never filed any answering affidavit to answer any of the allegations we were making against you. The matter was settled on that basis. I'm saying it was brought to me fortuitously that there is this order that has been obtained against one of your acting judges. And I'm saying to myself, but this is a division you're acting in. Why don't you come and say to the JP, hey, JP, this has happened, isn't it? Because, you know, when you want to become a judge, we don't want any controversies around you, because you're going to be sitting and dealing with a lot of serious matters involving society. So that's the only issue. I'm not interested in the history. To what prevented you from talking to me?
I appreciate the concern, JP.
Yes.
I should have updated you as that the matter was settled, and that was settled, that settlement was eventually made an order of court. I should have kept you updated, not only to say it's settled, JP, but also elaborate on the nature of the settlement. I
Yes.
appreciate the concern, JP.
Yes. And then there's the letter from the University of Limpopo. I was at a funeral of a former academic of the University of Limpopo. It's a person I was at varsity with at that university. So I went to the funeral, and then there was one person from the university there who spoke to me and said that we see that one of our former professors is acting in your court. I says, yes. They said, well, you know what you're getting, do you know what you're getting into? And then they started talking. I said, look, I'm not going to accept any verbal allegations. I want things in writing. And that's why that letter came, right? Now, the letter has been availed to you. You've seen it.
That's correct, JP.
And you have your view about why those allegations are made, right?
Correct.
So I'm saying to you, I have a duty as head of this court to make sure that the people I recommend to become judges permanently have no blemishes, if one may say so. I don't say you have blemishes, you've said whatever you've said, but do you want to say anything about the letter from University of Limpopo?
Thank you very much, JP. JP, I appreciate the concern raised by my colleague, Advocate Rapatsa Mashele. I know him as a brother and a scholar. JP, most of those allegations are unsubstantiated. They are baseless. It's character assassination, JP. During my tenure at the University of Limpopo, JP, I wasn't reporting to the author of the letter to disregard Advocate Rapat. I had my own direct line manager, who is my current dean, Professor Njoti. JP, when I was headhunted from UNISA to save the LLB accreditation status of the University of Limpopo, I was tasked to be the leader of the Quality Assurance Committee. There is no way that as a leader, JP, I could have absconded from important meetings. To the contrary, JP, I singularly drafted a 72 pages draft improvement plan after I was reappointed to lead the task team. And I presented that report and it was adopted. I took some of the comments from the older version of the report and incorporated them in the new report, JP. And eventually, we won the LLB accreditation of the University of Limpopo. But I must mention, JP, the Council on Higher Education was very clear in its condition of giving full accreditation at Limpopo. It said that the school was led by junior academics who have no PhD degrees, and that had to be resolved because it had an impact on the quality of education. After we had obtained the LLB status, Advocate Rapatsa Mashele was appointed, contrary to the CHE conditions for accreditation, to be the director of the law school. And he accepted, JP, that appointment, knowing exactly that he doesn't have an LLB degree. JP, at times, personal ambitions have to be subordinated
Yeah, can
to
I
the
stop you
collective
there?
good.
Can I stop you there? I think I've given you enough time to explain that background. But your departure from University of Limpopo, was it amicable?
It was amicable, JP. About a week ago, I was there. We had a conference. I went to support them.
No. All I want to know is,
JP,
was it amicable?
It was amicable, JP.
And from the University of Johannesburg?
It wasn't amicable at the University of Johannesburg,
Yes.
JP.
Okay. It's my duty to put this to you. You've given.
I appreciate it,
I've
JP.
gave you time to explain yourself. You have explained yourself. CJ, I will end there. Thank you.
Thank you, JP. Premier?
CJ, I'm covered, CJ. Thank you so much.
Thank you. JP Khaled?
Thank you, Chief Justice, and Professor, here am I.
Yes, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Just a follow-up on what Mlambo JP raised with you. It is so that you are a member of the Electoral Court. And did you disclose the existence of the litigation and its settlement with the chairperson of the Electoral Court and those who appointed you in that regard?
No, Commissioner. That has not been disclosed, Commissioner.
That
wasn't disclosed, Commissioner.
I see. And any reason that you can proffer why it was not, maybe?
Commissioner, after we had made an out-of-court settlement, my understanding, Commissioner, was that this is binding upon me. And we have resolved our differences as we had agreed. And from there, Commissioner, I dusted myself and moved on. Commissioner, I appreciate the concern. I should perhaps been more delicate and not only to take it as being resolved, but brought it to the attention of my seniors. That was an oversight. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you for the answer. And secondly, the explanation that we've been giving regarding what's happened with the UJ, University of Limpopo, don't you think your appointment at this stage will drag the name of the judiciary into this kind of spat? Is there a way in which it can be resolved so that when you are considered and ultimately appointed, that it is cleared? We don't have to see the judiciary being dragged onto the social media comments about this kind of issues. More so that without saying they are true, but that they relate to your character, there seem to appear to be allegations of defamation.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, for the question raised. I appreciate it. Commissioner, if I may go back, I understand the seriousness of this nature. Commissioner, as you would see from my questionnaire, I was born in the apartheid South Africa. And at certain stage, I was part of activists. However, I renounced my membership. As an academic commissioner, I could have chosen a route of only becoming a professor and focusing on my own personal development. However, as a young black aspiring academic, I couldn't focus only on my personal development when the injustices were occurring. I then, Commissioner, decided to be involved in issues affecting black academics. And eventually, I found myself being the center of attention, including being targeted. With that said, Commissioner, the allegations raised against me are very serious. But Commissioner, I had to come before this body to clear my name. The withdrawal of my candidature, Commissioner, would have meant that I have something to hide. Commissioner, I do not hide my academic activist. My writings, I am an academic commissioner. I express my feelings in various platforms. I have written about the Madam Chief Justice in one of my articles concerning transformation of the judiciary. I have written about the briefing patterns and produced a report. That is the commitment. And unfortunately, Commissioner, I must admit, being an activist, whilst you are pursuing your own career, it comes up with the price. It is the price, Commissioner, that I will pay. But going forward, Commissioner, I will be careful on how I conduct my activism. However, I will not subjudicate my conscience to the detrimental of the fellow black academics who are victimized and eliminated in historically white education. I appreciate your commissioner. Thank you.
Yes, and you've also written about my judgment in Kivis Kron at the Labor Appeal Court.
That's the same judgment, Commissioner, which raises the plight of black people who happen to believe in another platform of medical care. Unfortunately, Commissioner, as I said, there is a price to pay when you stand for your rights and the rights of others in the New South Africa. I appreciate your comments, Commissioner.
Yeah, I must say I got more than I bargained for, but what I want to say is there a way that you can clear up these issues, not in this body, so that at least when you are appointed, we don't have to go back to these kind of issues? If it's not possible, then I will accept an answer.
Commissioner, thank you so much. Commissioner, I was under the impression all the undertakings that we have been doing, I was under the impression that we have somehow agreed. The difficulty, Commissioner, when we reached the settlement agreement, if you look at it, Commissioners, there is one condition that I'm not willing to form part of that agreement. That is to retract and apologize for sharing my lived reality as a black scholar in a historically white university. Those appears to be the main things that keep making this matter to resuscitate.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Chief
Thank you,
Justice.
Commissioner.
Commissioner Gauteng?
Yes, thank you, Chief Justice. Professor Phooko, I just need to put some of the concerns
Yes, Commissioner.
to you. You have debated some with Judge Mlam. The first one is that there seems to be three primary objections. One is from the University of Johannesburg saga, where there was an application brought against you to interdict you from disseminating what they call were injurious falsehoods.
That's
And you
correct.
admitted that, and you entered into a court order
Yes.
in which you admitted to the interdict against you.
Sorry,
And
Commissioner.
now what we don't have are these injurious falsehoods that you allegedly disseminated.
Commissioner, may I respond?
Yes, please. That's the point of the question.
Thank you, Commissioner. The injurious statements, Commissioner, are the ones relating to my shared or my lived experience at the hands of the employees of the University of Johannesburg. I don't know whether Commissioner wants me to share that. It is now public information, Commissioner, because it is in a court file.
Yes.
However, I couldn't, out of my own volition, present it because it would somehow contravene the court order. Commissioner, I will be very brief. I will attempt to summarize this in a minute or two.
But no, don't make it a minute, make it 30 seconds.
Commissioner, what happened at the University of Johannesburg? When you have entered marks incorrectly, there is a form called a change of marks. And you complete that form so that it can be signed by your head of department and the dean. I happened to be in that situation where I incorrectly entered marks, approximately 150. I took the change of marks forms for approval and we corrected the marks. Then, at a certain disciplinary hearing of a black colleague, I indicated that I also faced a similar problem of change of marks and I completed the change of marks. Out of that disciplinary hearing I was testifying, I was informed that I lied and I said I completed the change of marks. After completing the change of marks, Commissioner, you hand over to the faculty administrator, who is Miss Monica Bretz, for keeping and filing. It happened that when I handed over my change of marks, Commissioner, something that I always do, I kept my own records. But when I went now to request the original files, they were nowhere to be found. Right through, Commissioner, they were nowhere to be found. I asked the chairperson of the disciplinary, not the chairperson, but the employee relations, please, there is something wrong because you cannot change the marks in the system without having completed this form. I phoned my co-lecturer who said, no, there's nothing like that you completed. My head of department and someone else, they denied the existence of the marks. I said, it's fine. It sounded like a rehearsed response. Then, Commissioner, what I did, when I arrived at home, I scanned the templates of the marks and I emailed them to the employee relations. On the following day,
Yes,
I received...
I understand. What I'm really looking at is, where did you publish these injurious falsehoods that they are talking about?
These
Because that's the internet is
Yes.
against your public announcements of these
These
falsehoods.
statements, Commissioner, I published them on Facebook platforms, on Twitter platform. I sent them to media houses. However, the media houses did not respond to them. And I also emailed some of them to my colleagues. And that's how I shared that experience, Commissioner.
No, that's fine. Now, then there is a second category of complaints, which is the circumstances in which you left the University of Limpopo, basically leaving them in a lurch, not attending to classes, not attending meetings, missing 3 meetings which were crucial in the university. And you've answered some of those questions that were put to you by the JP. Is there anything you want to add?
What I would like to add there, Commissioner Mugaitobi, is that in these meetings, we sign a register. However, the author of the complaint doesn't indicate the date of the meetings I've missed. And again, he doesn't indicate that at one stage I was even the head of that. And I wasn't reporting to him, Commissioner. The second one, Commissioner, it relates to businesses that I continued to be involved in a lounge.
Well, they call it a tavern.
Yes, Commissioner.
Yes.
Commissioner, I admit that I am in business. I have a lounge, Commissioner, which is licensed. It's called A2 Lounge Matatiel. I run a B&B, Commissioner. I have a logistics company, Commissioner. I have a farming company, Commissioner. Commissioner, at no stage during my acting stints, I was actively involved in these businesses. Even if I were to be involved, I can assure you, Commissioner, the workload at the Gauteng High Court will make it impossible for you to deliver judgments on time.
Yes. No, I think what concerned me with when I saw those allegations, there is the one where they say you have a general propensity to engage in social media and slander people there. I'm not saying that's correct, but that's what they're saying, that you have this propensity for social media and slandering people. And you are also engaged in private commercial enterprises. What concerned me was not the moral judgment on those activities because I don't have the capacity for it. But it is the fact that you are already occupying a judicial role in the electoral court. And that has the implication of bringing the administration of justice into disrepute. And whether you had in fact applied your mind to that, because there is an inconsistency between holding a judicial role and being an active tutor warrior.
I appreciate that, Commissioner. Commissioner, if I may respond, the business interests, I'm no longer involved. The logistics company closed down some way back.
Now, I understand that, but I'm saying that you were holding them at the same time as you were holding a quasi-judicial role in the electoral court. That's what really worried me there. It's not whether, I mean, as an academic, you can, there's no prohibition. I'm just worried about what people will think if you are sort of two-timing them.
I appreciate the concern, Commissioner. It doesn't paint a beautiful picture.
Yes, and it's the same thing with your propensity for Twitter and Facebook. It may be that the things you're saying are correct, but the public will think differently about the judicial system if one of their number is busy fighting other battles on Twitter. Which comes back then to the point made by Justice Tlaletsi, which is whether you shouldn't actually be taking time off, the cooling off period, to, I wouldn't say mature because that's not my space, but to let these events percolate and settle, and then to come back maybe in a year or two. At the moment, it looks like the transition is too soon and too sudden. Do you have any comment on that?
I appreciate the concern, Commissioner. Being an academic activist, it comes with a price, Commissioner, and I appreciate your concerns are quite correct, Commissioner.
All right.
Chief Justice, may I
Thank you,
follow
Chief
up,
Justice.
please? Good afternoon, Professor Phooko.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Professor Phooko, you're aware that I have great respect for you, but I am concerned that despite what you're saying, you don't quite appreciate the severity of the concerns that have been raised with you. And can I just demonstrate one issue? You've now indicated that you've had diverse business interests ranging from a lounge to a B&B to a logistics company and to a farming company. I'm correct?
That's correct.
Now,
Please proceed, Commissioner.
can I ask you to go to your form and specifically to paragraph 1 of your form?
You may proceed, Commissioner. I have the form in my
You see,
memory.
none of this is reflected in your form.
Commissioner, it's there under AA2 Lounge. That business, all these things, they fall under it. Then the farming commissioner, it's a family business, a sort of informal, not trading and so on.
You see, Professor Phooko, you disclose in paragraph 1 of section 3, you disclose the fact that you're a director in the company you list, the private company you list there.
That's
right.
They all fall under that company, Commissioner. Sorry, I wasn't clear enough.
No, I understand that, but what is required by section 1 goes further than that. It goes further than you disclosing just your directorships. It's also asking for your business interests. And so what I'm putting to you is that you had a duty to break down your business interests, to give the commission a sense of the extensiveness of your various interests.
I appreciate the concern, Commissioner. I was not clear enough. It's one company, then under that mother company, you have all these various, but they are not coming out clearly as I explained them now, Commissioner.
And you see,
I take the concern.
It gets worse, Professor Phooko, and I want you to very seriously consider this. If you go further down in the form, section 4, paragraph 1,
Yes, Commissioner.
asks you, are there any circumstances, financial or otherwise, known to you which may cause embarrassment in undertaking the office of a judge? Now, you're an academic, you understand the breadth of the term embarrassment.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Your business interest, for example, in a lounge, that's something you should have disclosed under that section.
Yes, Commissioner, I appreciate. I should have elaborated more on the company because commissioners are not aware of the company.
And more importantly, Professor Phooko, the settlement agreement that we were provided with after you put in your application, the settlement agreement should certainly have been disclosed in a number of sections in the form.
Commissioner, I must admit, I struggled with that one. I think somewhere it doesn't come out in my explanation in the form, but there's where I keep making reference to transformation activists and so on. But I appreciate, Commissioner, it should have came out very clear so that from the face of it, it is clear that this is a standing order.
You see, Professor Phooko, this is where you and I are losing each other. For me, this has got nothing to do with transformation activism. This has got to do with the fact that you entered into a settlement agreement, which was made at order of court, and that agreement imposed certain obligations on you.
Yes, Commissioner.
And so you know that if ever you breach any of the terms of that agreement, that's a breach of a court order.
That's precisely correct, Commissioner.
And for that reason, Professor Phooko, it really ought to have been disclosed under 4.1 of your form, section 4.1. It also ought to have been disclosed under section 4.2 of your form. Sorry, no, it's not a convicted of an offense, but you certainly are bound by a court order, which ought to have been disclosed in your form.
I appreciate the concern, Commissioner. I did not understand in that way, but I get it. It's clear, Commissioner.
So really, just to wrap up what I've been putting to you, it goes beyond raising concerns about your conduct generally. What I'm raising with you is material non-disclosures in your form to the JSC. And that's what I want you to address.
I appreciate the concern raised, Commissioner. I don't think I can take it further. This should have been come out clearly from the face of it, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you very much, Prof. Good afternoon.
Sorry, Commissioner. Yes.
It's Minister Smelan.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Have you deactivated all your social media accounts as we talk today?
As I sit here, Commissioner, I haven't deactivated anything.
When did that happen?
No, sorry, Commissioner, I'm saying I have not.
You have not?
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay. Do you understand the importance maybe of from emanating from today's discussions of possibly not having one?
I fully appreciate it is something to work on and address, Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Chief Justice, thank you so much. Good afternoon, Prof Phooko.
Sorry, Commissioner, which side are you on?
This side,
On your right.
Commissioner Lekhanyan.
Commissioner Lekhanyan.
Yeah. Good afternoon, how are you?
Commissioner, I'm surviving under the circumstances. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. No, it's just a follow-up to one of the statements that you made. Maybe you can help us to elaborate on it when you say academic activism comes with at a price. What do you mean by that?
Commissioner, my activism perhaps could have been approached in a different manner, especially if one is considering appointment as a judicial officer in the High Court. Perhaps the manner of approach could have been taken in another way, Commissioner. But I understand that fighting for other people doesn't necessarily justify the manner in which you engage on it. That's what I meant, Commissioner.
You want to concede that you are your approach could have been defective.
I fully appreciate, Commissioner. My approach could have been handled better, no matter how the circumstances were. Perhaps at the palms of my reaction, I just decided to act at that moment without fully appreciating the broader picture.
No, thank you so much, Chief Justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ikhanyane. Do you have questions from the virtual platform?
Yes, I do, Chief Justice. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Professor Phooko.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Marumwagai.
Perhaps maybe it is opportune time for one to disclose that we know each other very well and we work in the same space. I want to take you to your document, and page 112 in particular. The judgment that you penned,
Sorry, Commissioner, if you may direct me which bundle?
I would think that there is only one bundle, but where you have your decided cases, your judgment, B versus R, it is in page 112, paginated page 112.
I'm there, Commissioner.
Yes, this is the case of B versus R, and in particular paragraph 25 of that decision. This is a case that dealt with forfeiture of benefits. Yeah. And in paragraph 25, you say that the issue of fairness also does not come into play. In other words, in the remedy of forfeiture of benefits. The question that I want to ask you, and you are quite right, by the way, but the question that I want to ask you, forfeiture of benefits is one of those common law remedies that have been codified in the Divorce Act. Is there a need to develop this particular remedy, and is it constitutionally compliant to the extent that the concept of fairness is not part of how it should be understood?
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, I think if it were to be argued in that way, and particularly considering issues such as Ubuntu, compassion, and so on, one would be tempted to agree with you that the issue of fairness in the adjudication process perhaps could play a major development.
Oh, that's where you leave it. Okay, no, that's fine. CJ, let me leave it there as well.
Thank you, Prof. Yes, Acting President Zone.
All right. Yes, good afternoon, Professor Phooko. I'm here.
Good afternoon, DJP.
It's just my advice to you. It's just a comment. It's not a question. Based on what my colleague on my left has advised you to do, I think that the best thing for you to do is to keep away from social media, because it has got, it doesn't give one an opportunity to think and reflect. You react to something immediately before you think about the consequences of what you are going to say. So my advice to you is just, if you're really serious to progress in life generally, just stay away from social media, because it has got so much, it attracts so much negative energy, the energy that you don't need. So yeah, that's my advice to you. I wasn't aware that there were such issues, because I was not informed. I was not told that there were, you had some challenges with your former employers. Thank you. That's all. That's my advice to you.
I fully appreciate it, Chairman of the Electoral Court. Madam Chief Justice, Commissioners, I have considered the deliberations and I have considered the engagements between you and myself. I have taken your advices on board. JP, I've taken the advices on board. With those few words, I'm going back to do a homework. And I appreciate, I withdraw my candidature. I thank you, Madam Chief Justice and Commissioners. Thank you.
JP Mlambo.
CJ, before the Prof leaves,
Yes, JP?
I discovered you. You said that. And I've invested in you. I hope you understand that I was duty bound to the institution of the judiciary and to the court I lead that this engagement happens. Do you understand that? And I want to say, to encourage you to say, when I reach out to you to say, come, let's talk. Because I don't want my investment in you to be lost. And that you will respond. You understand that? I've got nothing against you personally. You understand that? I just wanted to say that, CJ. Thank you.
Thank you, JP.
I appreciate JP. Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner.
No, I've not released you yet.
Oh.
don't rush off.
My apologies, Chief Justice.
I just wanted to say that I know where you come from. I used to do circuit work when I was still in the High Court in the Transkei, in Maluti. I'm quite familiar with that area. I know that dusty, arid village from which you come, and it's quite remarkable that it's produced a professor who studied overseas, who's achieved all the things you've achieved. You described yourself as a raw but shiny diamond, and that's what you are. So what has happened here today should not discourage you. I just want to give you that that caution. There's still a lot you can do, and you can still come back. But do pay attention to the advice given to you by acting President Zondi. Social media is the bane of this generation. Is the bane. Why is the internet and all that it comes with is good. We appreciate the benefits it has brought, but it has caused huge damage to our young people for various reasons we don't have time to traverse now. So keep away from social media, young men.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice.
But
Thank
thanks
you.
for this honorable decision.
Thank you,
You're
JP.
excused.